I think I'm getting tired of waiting. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Turnout. I am your host, Aloy. Don't forget to check out usaaudiences.com for special event and movie screening invites. And today, what are we going to be talking about? I'm going to be talking about the Buffy reboot. Mostly because it was announced a long time ago. Some people don't even know that they were trying to reboot Buffy because it was kind of mentioned and then it went away. To catch everybody up, in 2018, it was announced that they were considering doing a Buffy reboot, and then they were kind of pulling the trigger and saying, you know what, we're really going to try and make this a thing. And we're going to maybe make the new main character a black girl, a person of color in that respect. And that's, of course, where the Buffy fandom kind of splintered, where it became you either were down for a Buffy reboot or you were hashtag not my Buffy. A lot of people were kind of painting it as this forced diversity, forced inclusion sort of thing, but I don't think that that's the case. I'm actually kind of somewhere in the middle. I can see why people would be like, hey, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original series, it's still going strong. New people are still coming to the show, and it's still like very poignant, and it still has effect. I've recently watched it with my teen, and my teen loved it. And it's like, it didn't even matter that like there were no cell phones in the first few seasons and stuff like that. I think that the show itself is going to end up being one of those timeless things that everybody will be still watching decades from now, years from now, generations from now, I think at least. However, I do like the idea of a reboot. And as we've learned in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, if you haven't watched the review that I did for that movie, go check that one out. But there is a difference between a remake and a reboot. A remake is they repackage the same thing and change just enough to try to sell it to you again. But a reboot is a continuation of the story. And yes, it might have new characters, it might have different arcs and whatnot, but it is a continuation of the story. So when it's said that they're going to reboot the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, I don't personally believe that that means that it's going to erase Buffy, because that would be a remake. There's definitely like some semantics that need to be applied here, but the words do matter here. And one of the things that I really dug about the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer series was in the last season, and they mentioned her earlier on as well, but Nikki, the Slayer before Buffy. I loved the idea of Nikki, and obviously if a show followed Nikki around, it would have been a completely different experience than following Buffy around. And a lot of that has to do with that character's place in the world. One was kind of a blonde, pretty teenager, all of that. And the other one had a hard life living on the street, single mom. And despite what so many people want to think, color of skin does still matter in America. Hopefully one day it won't, but technically right now it still does, and it does tell a different story and can let viewers in on a different experience if the next Slayer was a woman of color. So I really dig the idea of going in that direction. You also don't want to just remake the same thing. You don't want to bring Buffy the Vampire Slayer back if you're just going to try to tell the same stories. You want to be able to tell new stories. So what I did just recently is I decided to go and look for any updates that I could find. Oh my gosh, there's almost nothing. But I did find a Screen Rant article from a couple of months ago, and they were discussing kind of what we know, what we don't know, and where the project is currently. So the first question is, do we have any kind of release date? And the answer to that is definitely a no. It was announced that this was even going to be a thing in July of 2018. So now we are officially 2 years later. 2 years is a really long time from an announcement. And the problem with that is that I feel like it was ill-timed. You can't announce something like this and then sit on it for 2 years. This is the kind of thing, especially with the fandom that Buffy the Vampire Slayer has, of which I am a member, you have to have something before you announce it, because we will go rabid over it. So we have no attached release date, no script, no idea of what the storyline's going to be or who the characters are going to be, or even how it's going to be distributed. right now, since Disney has actually acquired Fox 21 TV studios, there is also the thought that it could end up on either Hulu or Disney Plus. I think it would be interesting if they rebooted Buffy to the CW, who also rebooted Charmed, obviously. I think that would be interesting. They also rebooted Roswell. So CW loves to reboot these old shows that they used to carry, so let's see if they do it as well. The next question is, do we have anybody attached to the project? But really right now there are no actors attached to it. There is, however, Joss Whedon, who is still believed to be on board to be the executive producer. He was definitely on board with rebooting the world and doing something new with it. A second person attached to this is Monica Owusu-Breen, and she's on to be the writer, executive producer, and showrunner for the show whenever it actually happens. And she has previously worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as Lost, Alias, and Fringe. And honestly, those 4 shows, I believe, is a really good resume for rebooting something like this and bringing kind of a new spin to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its world. All of the original executive producers are back as well of the original show. I believe that they all kind of have to be, like they have to give their thumbs up for it. So all of those people are back. Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Boreanaz have both said they will not be in this project. However, Anthony Stewart Head, who played Giles, and James Marsters, who played Spike, said they're both up for the task. Like, they're interested. Like, let's see what happens. They could technically make an appearance. And while we don't have any real story details, the producers have been quoted as saying, like our world, it will be richly diverse, and like the original, some aspects of the series could be seen as metaphors for issues facing us all today. And honestly, that's what Buffy the Vampire Slayer really shined at doing, was kind of putting a spotlight on these events in Buffy's life, and the monsters and whatnot just were representations of that, and she would slay the monster and she would get over whatever she was getting over. And I feel again that like really telling a specifically different story, also with so much time having passed since the original series has ended, and we have brand new obstacles and challenges in our day and age today, I really feel like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot would be an amazing thing to bring out. Like now would be good, or, you know, soon. But anyway, that's all that I've been able to find. And it honestly is pretty disheartening. It makes me very frustrated. Again, you should not be announcing things if you don't have information on it. So if you aren't ready to start moving on this project, then don't say anything. Otherwise, you're just going to have people like me making videos about it, and people like Screen Rant making articles about it, and we're all just talking about how we haven't heard anything for 2 years. Hopefully we hear something soon, since we are now in July of 2020. Maybe 2 years is the line where they're going to start saying something. I guess we'll see. What do you guys think? Do you have any other information that maybe I missed? I looked for a lot of different articles, and I know that they recently did a comic book reboot of Buffy, but the show has still kind of been in this limbo kind of state. They don't know who's going to carry it. They don't know who's going to really be acting in it or writing it, and nobody is really attached to it except for people who are vaguely working on possibly bringing it back as a reboot. But if you have more information on that, let me know. Otherwise, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, so you always know when the Turnout releases a new video. And I've been your host, Eloy. This has been the Turnout. Thanks for showing up.